Yeah, someone just drove into the canal.
Are they out of the car?
It happens thousands of times a year.
Did you see how many people might have been in the car?
An emergency call comes in. A car is in the water. Someone is trapped inside. This is just a training exercise.
What do we got?
But in the Miami area, Metro-Dade Fire Rescue receives real-life calls like this every week.
A car came down that road like 100 miles an hour and flipped over and rolled right here.
Though this is a simulation, tensions are running high.
How many people did you see in the car?
I think I saw one guy driving. That was it. One guy driving.
Okay.
Captain Ed Brown has been involved in nearly 100 water rescues in the last 26 years, and he knows his life-saving skills can be called for at any moment.
Okay, Louie, just back me up.
Any place where you've got water and you've got cars, you've got the combination of cars going in the water.
What's been your experience, Captain, as to why people end up driving a car in the water?
It's probably 1/3 alcohol-induced, maybe 1/3 elderly, and the other third could be anybody.
Like in this training exercise, divers often find drivers either unconscious or already dead. Most landed in the water for the same reasons they ended up wrapped around light poles: too much to drink, bad weather, a collision that sends you spinning out of control. We all know famous victims of such accidents. Mary Jo Kopechne drowned when Senator Ted Kennedy drove off a bridge in Chappaquiddick. NBC anchor Jessica Savage and a companion died when their car rolled into a canal. But it can happen to anyone, anywhere. In Phoenix, a woman drowned when flash floods ripped across a road. In Peoria, 3 teens died in this frozen drainage ditch. A Spokane man drowned in this truck. And just last December, a 75-year-old Florida man was killed when his car careened into a lake. According to insurance industry statistics, at least 292 people drowned in their vehicles in 1994 alone. And AAA estimates that in all, vehicles end up in the water as often as 11,000 times a year. So it can happen to you, but if you're prepared and know what to do, you can get out alive. Captain, God forbid it ever happens, but if it does and you end up in your car in the water, what do you do to get out?
I like to tell people, remember the word POGO, P-O-G-O, pretty easy to remember. The P part is pop the seatbelt. The O part is open the window. The last part, the G-O, is go, get out.
We decided to test Captain Brown's advice. Dateline got a car, hooked it up to a crane, and with me inside, dropped it into a South Miami canal. Most cars will float for 2 to 3 minutes before they sink, enough time to get out if you act quickly.
The mistake most people make is that they panic, understandably so. The water's starting to rush into this car, coming up to the floorboard, now hitting my ankles. But you have to remember what Captain Brown told us, POGO. What do? First, pop that seatbelt. Secondly, open the window. And third, get out.
It seems deceptively easy. That's if you can keep a clear head. One caution, the window of our junkyard car wasn't working, so I had to push it down by hand. In your car, of course, you'd simply roll the window down or try your electric window. Later, we'll explain what you can do if it's not working. But don't panic, because panic can make you forget even the simplest things.
Where have you seen evidence of people panicking to the point where it cost them their lives, where they could have gotten out?
We've had a lot of situations where the window is open, the door may have been open, and they were trapped in the car, and they were only held in by a seatbelt. They completely forget the fact they're strapped in, and they go into eternity still strapped in the seatbelt.
Morris and Pauline Dolinsky know just how terrifying it truly is. The Florida couple, in their early 80s, was leaving a shopping center last November, and they showed us how they drove straight into disaster.
I was standing still, and then when I felt that I could turn, so the next thing I know, I was going straight across into the canal.
To this day, Morris isn't sure what caused the accident, but the next few minutes are seared into their memories.
I saw what was happening, and I said, "Oh, my God!" And he says, "Oh, what am I doing?" He was frightened, too.
The Dolinskys' car didn't sink right away. But confused and panicky, they lost the precious few minutes they had to escape before the car went under.
Pauline, was there at any moment when you were in the car that you tried to open the windows, tried to roll them down?
I never did, because I figured that the water should come in slowly.
And it does come in slowly, at first, but the water flooding in through the floorboards and the weight of the engine pulls the car under faster and faster. So failing to open the windows and get out immediately was the Dolinskys' big mistake. But what can you do if you're still inside when your car sinks? Captain Brown says you should still try the pogo method. Will it work? To find out, I stayed strapped in as my car went under. Now watch what happens. Despite being trained as a scuba diver and having an emergency tank of air in the back seat, as the water rushes in, you can see the panic on my face. I immediately reached for the window, then realized I'd forgotten to pop my seatbelt first. It seemed to take an eternity, but as you can see, I managed to escape in just a few seconds.
You should still try the windows.
Yes. If it's wind-down windows and you're lucky to be driving one of those old-timers, crank it down and get out.
But if you have electric windows, like in most cars, you've got a big problem. Chances are the water will have shorted out the electric system, and your windows simply won't work. Now you'll have to consider your next option.
Your first thought when the car first hits the water may be to try and open the door, but that's next to impossible because of the outside water pressure on the door. Actually, you should wait until the car is totally submerged, and even then, as we're about to show you, it can be a struggle to open the door, but you can still do so. We'll show you how.
Sitting and waiting as your car fills with water and sinks will be terrifying. But if the door is your only way out, you don't have any other choice. The door will only open when it's covered with water both inside and out, and the pressure on both sides is equal. A few other things to keep in mind. There's a good chance your car may flip upside down as it sinks, so keep hold of something, the steering wheel, a door handle, so you can orient yourself when the car settles. And then there's the belief that you can survive by breathing trapped air. Don't count on it.
In general, the air pocket, if one does exist, is very small. It may not be easily accessed. It may be only, a couple of quarts of air trapped close to the roof, and it may be highly contaminated with gasoline and other things that make it very unpleasant to breathe.
Now, let's assume the worst has happened. The car is now underwater, the doors and windows are locked, and you can't get out. What do? Well, if you've planned ahead, there is this device called a center punch, which is available at just about any hardware store. With it, you can literally shatter the window. Simply place the point firmly against the window and push.
Yeah, I really believe in these little items. It's great for breaking side windows of cars and for extrication. I keep one in every vehicle I have in the family, and I keep it on the dashboard, either on a lanyard or attached to the dashboard in a way that it's easily available for the driver right from the driver's seat and is reachable.
So, back into the water, this time with a spring-loaded center punch. I held it at a 90-degree angle against the lower part of the window and pushed. Be sure your center punch is sharp. A dull one probably won't work. Attach it securely within easy reach. And if you don't have a center punch, you can try any sharp object, a screwdriver or a pocket knife. But be aware, not every window will break easily.
You won't be able to break the windshield because it's tempered safety glass. You won't be able to break the back window because it's tempered safety glass, but the side windows are breakable.
Forget about trying to break the front or back windows, go for the side windows.
That's correct.
The Dolinskys didn't make it out of their side windows.
I kept thinking to myself, I can't believe this. I just can't believe that this is happening to us.
With their car completely underwater, they were about to drown. And they would have, but for these three men.
Just saw those arms waving. Knew something had to be done.
Rick Seymour, Keith Karacher, and Matt Bisesto were just passing by that November morning, on the way to their jobs. Keith was the first to dive in.
the car started sinking, and we saw the bodies in the car, and they were pretty much looking at us, pleading with us, and the car filled up with water, and it went down and went underwater.
Well, I seen Keith and Rick go in the water, and they were screaming that they needed a hammer, and I knew I had a sledgehammer. And I climbed back up the bank, ran over to my car, got my sledgehammer, and dove into the water.
I knew they didn't have much time left, so it was a pretty good-sized sledgehammer, and I hit the back window out.
Once the window shattered, then what happened?
Morris, he just shot right out. He shot up.
Out of the back window?
There was so much pressure that he just came shooting out. At that time, I gave him to Rick, and I went back down, and there was Pauline, and pulled Pauline out.
They lived through a nightmare.
The Dolinskys were lucky, but you can't count on someone being there at the right time with the right equipment to save you. As remote as it may seem, what happened to the Dolinskys could happen to you. And if it does, remember, you can get out alive.
Think about the unthinkable. Think what could happen if you drove your car in, what you would have to do, and what you would have to do would be pop the seatbelt, open the window, and get out of the car. You should be able to be a survivor.
Morris Dolinsky is no longer driving, and you'll be happy to know that he and Pauline recently celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary.